K24 TV. Still with my panel right here, but I'm moving on to the Standard now. Will BBI deliver Uhuru and Raila handshake deal? In March 2018, they promised it was not about politics, but unity, progress, and development. And immediately after that, Mr. Issa, it took a political angle.
Yes.
We saw, a huge line of fault within the ruling party that has since, we now have two camps there because of this. Yes. And that has never been mended. And we look about unity, progress, development. All of these things were actually there in the constitution in one form or the other.
Yes.
Did you need a handshake to actually get this done?
So, first of all, the handshake was good. We've never disputed that. Mm-hmm. But again, the way the BBI came in, I don't think it had the blessings of the Kenyans because they were not involved. You know, we talk about public participation, but now the argument from the political angle is that once the committee has given the report to the president, the public will be involved. Right. So that is post-involvement of the public.
Right.
They're supposed to be involved from the word go. Because this, at the end of the day, they still have a question that will be taken to the public. And this question will take a political angle. But the question is, whom are they targeting? If they're not targeting Wajiko, whom are they targeting? Because Wajiko must be informed. A campaign message must be clear to everyone who is being targeted. Right. It must be easy and understandable by everyone who is being targeted. Right. But look at the 2 points, the Puguza Mzigo. The Puguza Mzigo is so straightforward. It's a message on its own, even without looking at the content. It's a message on its own. BBI looks like something that must be explained to Kenyans. But if you look at, on the other hand, the BBI is not going anywhere, looking at the things the way they are. Just because Wajiko does not get involved much, even the ones who went to correct the signatures did not even tell Wajiko exactly what they were doing. So Wajiko was reading on the newspapers and the media was telling Wajiko what is the BBI. And knows, the Puguza Mzigo or some of the sort. So now the Puguza Mzigo is going. So the BBI must be explained. So how is it going to be explained? And how will Wajiko accept it? Right. Because
but I think they also went around the country as the BBI team asking for various views.
They went, but they did not target the right people.
If they come to a county hall, anyone can come in.
But they were not announcing they were coming to the county hall. So you read on the newspaper that
I think we saw the announcement. I think we saw them saying that next week will be in Nyandarua, the week after that, they're coming to your area. So, and this way will be
going to county hall, I'll say there's not enough yet. So you can even use the media itself to actually educate. This is civic education. Right. To educate.
Jeff, I've just been listening to him, and I'm just like, I think you are one of the people who are just fighting BBI before even the report itself is launched. We have seen a lot of Kenyans anticipating what will be in the BBI report. So many of them even saying that, Ugatuzi initiative is basically an offshoot of what BBI report is going to come out with. I think as Kenyans, we really need to be patient and see what is this BBI going to propose, because there has been a lot of speculation around what exactly they're going to say. Second, I honestly believe that of all the initiatives I have seen, BBI really tried to actually get to the mashinani, to the people on the ground. I've seen a lot of Kenyans saying that, the handshake was good for the country, but BBI is not, BBI is just but a political tool. I mean, you cannot just stop at a handshake. The purpose of BBI Building Bridges initiative, from what I understood, was to find ways of how to bring about cohesion within the country, find ways of how to get to ensure that Kenyans are able to live cohesively. Personally, as an individual, I actually happen to be one of the people who made a few presentations before the BBI committee as to what I thought, or rather what we thought as young people should be included in whatever agenda that shall come out of the BBI committee. I think we must appreciate the fact that there has indeed been very good public participation coming from BBI. They managed to literally reach every corner of the country. We cannot discuss much about BBI except for wait for their resolutions that will come out on October 24th. But in terms of public participation, they did very well. As compared to Punguza Mzigo, as he rightfully put it, what many people would think is a brilliant idea whose time had come, and clearly going by how it is being rejected by county assemblies, there's clear questions as to how genuine were even the signatures that were purportedly collected.
But Ruth, also, was it a question of how genuine the signatures are, or is it a political angle? Because you see that you can clearly see where people have strong affiliations to certain for example, ODM territories, Punguza Mzigo will definitely fall there because they've been told, wait for BBI. So
no, but you see, the thing is,
or the political climate at which the county assembly
that kind of argument is faulty, because the counties that have actually rejected Punguza Mzigo initiative up until now, none of them are actually coming from the ODM zones as you speak. Many of them are actually coming from the Jubilee zones. And I think Punguza Mzigo, as I said, you know, a lot of suggestions will be put forth, but what is the substance of these suggestions? When you critically look at Punguza Mzigo, there are so many fundamental flaws of some of the propositions that Punguza Mzigo is making. One of the flaws that I have always pointed out is the fact that Punguza Mzigo is trying to realign how the country is basically, how the country has been subdivided, regions and zones, and that is something that is very emotive. When it comes to boundary delimitation in this country, that is one very emotive issue, because when you now start saying that, oh, you're going to reduce the number of county assemblies, you're going to reduce the number of constituencies, what you're essentially saying is that now we are going to start merging certain areas that were no longer together and putting them as one constituency. And we've known how Kenyans, basically some communities in the Mashinani, fight over issues such as boundaries, how far do our boundaries go, which land belongs to which people, which communities are supposed to be neighboring which other communities, resource allocation. And I think now when you look at now the content of it all going down, because most of the counties that are shooting it down, let us not buy the populist argument that Punguza Mzigo is being shot down because there are political leaders that are sponsoring county assemblies. No, not that.
We've had leaders say that when it comes to this county, shoot it down. We've heard them say that.
It sounds like a valid argument, but then again also look at the fundamental. It is one of the arguments, and it could be true, but look at the fundamental argument, which is what is the content of Punguza Mzigo really, you know.
Let me bring Dennis in on this, because he's smiling like he has seen this before and he can see where this is going. And you've heard what Ruth is saying, the fact that as it goes around, we are seeing the flaws in Punguza Mzigo. But some people are saying it's a political angle, and some people have decided we shall, you know, take our lines to the party leader's statement or our regional leader. If we are shooting it down, we do it en masse.
I was listening to my sister here address passionately the issue of Punguza Mzigo, and I get a feeling that she doesn't live in Kenya. She must have visited Kenya recently.
Why is that?
Reason being that Kenyan politics works on a particular political environment where the political leaders call the shots. I've said before, and I'll say it again, that the county assemblies will not pass Punguza Mzigo, not because I could wish that what my sister Ruth is saying were to be true, that they're analyzing the content and rejecting the bill on account of what is there. That is not what is happening. What is happening is that they have orders from their, you know, political heads, and notably what the leaders that we know is Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, and they are not interested in what is in the content. Of course, they could have picked one or two issues, but they are failing to appreciate that there could be also other issues that are really making sense within the entire bill as drafted. So there could be the negatives on it, there could be proposals that are not making sense, but there are others that I think are logical. But Kenya is not handling through their, you know, MCAs the entire bill and giving it justice and rejecting on account of the content. Right. In some assemblies, including my own county assembly, where I come from, the bill did not get even the person to propose it, to second it. So we did not get to the stage of looking at what is in it.
At the issues.
It was tabled, yes, and there was nobody to second it, so it flopped. That was the end. So we cannot really hide our heads and say that these people are looking at the content. Now, if you look at the BBI, it could be logical to say that let's wait for the report. That could be the right thing to do. But if you ask me, we do not need BBI, we do not need Punguza Mzigo or any constitution amendment now. What we need as a country is leaders who are committed to even implementing the constitution as is. For the first time in the Kenyan, you know, constitution, we have principles of good governance in Article 10 of the Constitution. They are very clear on what it is that you will be able to take into account. Within the entire constitutional structure, we have the way power should be separated, we have resource allocations, we have created various organs, and if we were to be true to the Constitution and implement it, 3/4 of the problem we have could be erased. But that has not happened. Sometimes back you heard the president before he was told that you can actually float the Constitution and nobody will do anything to it, crying, what can I do? There's nothing for me to do. We tells you that the Constitution is crafted in a way that powers are shared. But we still have leaders who believe, and I get to see even elected members of parliament from, you know, Jubilee saying we are in government. They are not in government. I mean, all of us, both, if you go back to the basics of our education in terms of what government is, there's all the arms, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. So every member of parliament, whether coming from ODM or whatever it is, forms part of this government. They are organs to check each other. But you will find that a member of parliament who comes from a Jubilee zone cannot be able to pinpoint and correct the executive's, mistakes or check it properly, because they have a feeling that Uhuru Kenyatta is the head of Jubilee, and therefore I'm a member of parliament from Jubilee, and therefore I'm in the government. I've seen, including the leader of majority in Senate, claiming, we people, one time when the things don't work for him, he says, we don't know what's happening with this government. The next day he says he's in government. So there's that confusion. If our leaders were to be true to their mandate, to be true to the things that they're supposed to do, so that they are acting in the best interest of the citizens, they are only trustees for the powers of the citizens, then we will not have need for any constitution amendment. Perhaps we would be having legislative amendments for us, enact some particular legislations and then amend a few clauses to ensure that the constitution is implemented the way it's supposed to be. That has not happened.
It's also raised an issue in terms of public participation as far as BBI is concerned, saying that the public participation came after the fact. Does that, and because we've become a highly litigious society, are we looking at a case where probably on 24th, when this report is tabled, they might merit a case where somebody will go and say the constitution of the team wasn't done with public participation, meaning this report is null and void? So are we seeing this? Because we've seen such cases go to court. Might this happen?
I don't think that we are likely to have that kind of scenario. But when I listen to him, he's only speaking on behalf of very many other Kenyans who feel that the entire BBI, they do not understand, they didn't get involved. There was a question between Uhuru and Raila when they were unhappy with each other's win in elections. And that is the feeling that the people have. It might not be true, because I gather that the BBI, they try to go around. It really does not matter whether the team was constituted. In fact, if you ask me, my real issue, it is their legal mandate, how they were, came in place, the funding that came in. This was Uhuru and Raila. The other political players were not involved in setting up that team, so that then, if you ask me, there's a possibility that they're working for their paymasters. They're working for the people who appointed them. But as to whether they did proper public participation, that's a different question, and we have seen them going around. We do not expect in public participation to get the 45 million Kenyans to have their views. It's not practical, it's not possible, but at least they went round and collected their views. Now, we have been questioning how were they constituted? If really wanted the constitution amendment, like we had had before, we had a new constitution, we had a committee of experts who were drawn from various stakeholders, they came together, proper legal mechanism in terms of how they will come in place, how they will do what they want to do. That is how everybody feels this is the right person to be in that particular panel. But if I put in, as Uhuru Kenyatta appoints his personal friend in political circles who thinks like him, really that person is going to please or whatever views they'll collect. Even the report is likely to try to read the minds of their leaders. And that is why people feel that this is not about Kenya, it's about Uhuru and
That's a perception it got.
But Jeff, I think we also forget that a referendum is one of the ways that the Constitution has pronounced itself as one of the ways through which Kenyans can directly participate in their own, can directly exercise their sovereign power. So basically, it's anybody can come up with a resolution and say that, look, we have come up, the three of us, the four of us, we decide to go to the country and get the views of Kenyans and tell them this is what we are proposing. So when we start saying that, this could be views shared by a few friends of the president, I think again we also get it really, we tend to get it very wrong. And I don't see that kind of criticism being directed at the Ugatuzi initiative, which pretty much is suggesting what most Kenyans are thinking the BBI committee is going to suggest. The suggestion that we should have a prime minister, 2 deputy prime ministers. I'm not seeing that kind of heat being directed at the Ugatuzi initiative. Is it because we still don't understand it? Is it because we are just not paying attention to it? So I think a referendum is, we are not coming up with a new constitution. I agree with him that when the new constitution was coming up, there was an entire committee of experts that were selected through a process. But this is a referendum, not a creation of a new constitution. But then again, also to a certain extent, I would also want to agree with him to the extent that we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans that do we really need Do we really need a referendum?
Okay, and as they've said time and time again, all they're doing right now is debating on what is possibly in the document. Come 24th of this month, we'll actually see what is in there, and then from there, make a judgment call on what
they actually say there's no need to have a referendum.
And they have said that is a possibility as well. And all of this debate will be, I mean, just down the drain. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Look at the committee, there is no representation. We don't have the youth, we don't have people with disabilities. So you understand what we are saying.
Right.
She has gone there good to give her views. But to who? There are no youth listening, there are no people with disability and other groups that we consider. Right. So we also needed some representation so that we can also trust the group.
But there were persons with disabilities
coming to give their views.
On the committee.
In the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So of course, as we said, the D-Day, as far as BBI is concerned, they've gone for the retreat to panel beat it and make sure it's a document that can present it. That happens on the 24th of October. Then from there, we shall actually have a discussion on the contents that we actually do know are in that particular document. Let's now move on to the Daily Nation. Front page of the Daily Nation: puzzle of missing 5.6 billion shillings at NSSF. Thousands of Kenyans looking forward to receiving the retirement benefits could be in for a rude shock after it emerged that the fund failed in its legal mandate of ensuring employers deduct money from workers and remit it on time. This coming from the Auditor General's office. They looked into the books and found a glaring hole in the books of accounts of 5.6 billion shillings. They said they were unable to collect this money. Some of it probably had been done via M-Pesa transactions and other transactions. So they were saying some of those accounts hadn't been presented to the Auditor General. But looking at all of that, people are, and this is the same story. We're looking at failure in terms of them giving confidence. It's not in the judiciary, it's not in the legislator. You're there working hard, assuming that by the time you get to 60, you have a nest somewhere that you can take that money and use for something else. And then you wake up and look at this headline, Issa. As you're going to your employer this morning, you wonder, should I just take that money instead of it being deducted and just open a mattress account? I can see it every day and count it right from there. It's safer there.
You'll also be surprised that some people, the last deductions were done in 2010 probably. And they have worked there for like 15 years.
Right.
It happens.
Hence this particular type of issue.
Yes, it happens. So that's why you're seeing that some people may face some shock on the scene. But these are the same things that we're talking about. So, the anti-corruption bit and the ethics part, I think the ethics part was forgotten. So we failed to teach our Kenyans on the ethical part of life. So we keep on hunting the anti, or rather the corrupt people. So, but if we forget about the BBI and the Poguza Mzigo and we focus our energies on matters of handling these public monies in the right way, I think that's the best thing, Jeff.
Right.
So we lose a lot of money every year, and that is what our focus should be. But the problem is, as my friend here said, is because people never want to do the right thing. And in most cases, you find that people do things emotionally, and probably based on the authorities that speaks on their behalf, not on the policies that speaks on their behalf. And that is a problem with Kenyans. And we keep on making the same mistake. Remember when Atwari and, is it Kazungu, the same issues some years back, when they were talking about loss of money in the NSSF. We have also done some elections after that. And we have actually appointed people to represent us in that NSSF category. But nothing is changing. Why? Because we are not concentrating on the important things. We are concentrating on some of the things that are not helpful. I also mentioned something contrary to that. Like there's a group when we are doing our 2017 election that we are telling the other group that can you open the server so that you can see exactly what went wrong. Right. But now, instead of the same group now asking, was the server opened? Nobody's talking about the IBC.
Served that under the carpet.
Yeah, nobody's talking about IBC.
And let's talk about that as well, because this isn't the first time the Office of the Auditor General has screamed from the rooftops. There's impropriety going here, there's unaccountability, we can't understand what happened to these particular monies. We've had it from counties, reports, we've seen it in state agencies, and we sit and look shocked at the 5.6 billion as is with today's headline. Then we move on.
I think it's an institutional issue. I think I'll have it at two levels. First of all, if we were to talk about the NSSF directly, I think people contribute 400 shillings, 200 from the person and 200 from the employer. Jeff, on the 21st century, in 2019, the value of 200 shillings is not the same as what it was then, those years when the NSSF Act was enacted, when you're supposed to contribute that kind of money. But are we seeing the review of this based on inflations and other circumstances? That is not happening. So in terms of policy, we are looking at a situation where even an employee is not interested. I mean, like 400 is a very small amount of money, it may not really change much. They cannot even secure 1 year post your employment. If you were to, anybody going for retirement today, the amount of money that they will be able to collect, even if you were to do rough mathematics, per year, probably the person is supposed to save about 4,000 shillings. Right. So even if you talk about 4,000 times 30 years of working, that is less than 100,000. How much will 100,000 help you today?
Right.
It is almost negligible. And if you were to have said that the money could have been invested, what is the issue? Now we go back to what the Auditor General said. He's been pointing out irregularities, loss of funds, and all these issues become politicized. We have not seen actual prosecutions. And it goes back to the issue where, if you ask me, the DPP is very active prosecuting graft cases in the media. And we are yet to see what is the rocket science in getting the report, getting the documents, getting the evidence properly, and charging people. And within a short time, all the evidence is there. Go to court when you have all the evidence. Right. What are we seeing? People are getting arrested on Kamata Fridays. The entire nation is, worried who is next. Once they are arrested, they are all taken to court on a Monday and say, no, we are not ready. Give us 24-hour working hour, 14 days. The court, because it's been attacked severally, that is the weak link, they will say, okay, we think, though it's wrong for you to arrest without evidence, it's okay, have your 14 days. Right. They'll have their 14 days. They'll come back and they're not even ready to prosecute the person because they relied on, media statements to really arrest. They relied on information that is not verified to do the arrests. They are really frustrating people when there's nothing substantive in it. Right. So the institutions have to make a choice that if we really think NSSF money is lost and there's this report, ask for the source documents, review it, get the correct evidence, pick out and say, we think the managing director or the CEO of NSSF is culpable, and have the evidence stapled, take the person on a Monday, charge the person, and demand that because you have the evidence, have your witnesses. Right. The court is not going to say no. If we do that, then Kenyans institutions will become more accountable. But that is not happening.
And that's what we're demanding right now. We're talking about accountability. Ruth, you're looking at the fact that they also disposed irregularly land in Mavoko, 70 acres right there in. And people see this and they're like, okay, who's there representing us? We're feeling like we're being robbed. We've seen 5.6 billion shillings gone right there. And we're wondering, okay, fine, who sits there and says, okay, fine, this looting, this mismanagement, it must stop. Because this, we've seen these reports from the Office of the Auditor General, as I was telling Dennis. But he comes, he says there's something going on wrong here. And then we move on.
Yeah, you see, one of the things when the Auditor General, and even the control of budget, I'll talk about the control of budget, is that one of the functions of the control of budget is that, at the end of every financial year, his work is to check each and every government agency, how much money had been allocated to them in the previous financial year, how was the money used, whether there is any gaps, rather, in terms of how much money is missing, and give a report that is supposed to be debated in Parliament and even at by the committees and at the county assemblies. And persons, found persons found liable, or rather persons found to have participated in the missing of funds in any way, one way or the other, are supposed to now then be taken to the EACC, investigations done, and then, the entire legal process kicks in. But now for me, what I'm seeing here is a clear case of a body, a government parastatal, failing on its core mandate. Your core mandate is to ensure that employers have deducted the remissions of employees and basically submitted the same to NSSF. But you're failing in that particular core mandate. Call it for what it is. This is corruption, because in the report it is indicated that there has been a difference, NSSF reporting a particular figure, and yet the figure within the account, the figures within the accounts, there's a variance of about 26-point-something million shillings. That is a lot of money. That is not, that is not 1 shilling missing. This is 26-point-something million shillings, a lot of money. And this small monies that one would think are small monies, but when accumulated over time, result to big corruption scandals, which if not dealt with in time, a lot more, the country risks losing a lot. Right. This brings me to the discussion that, Jaguar the other day tried to come up with a debate of we should, lower the retirement age from 60 years old, 60 years to 50 years. So imagine if indeed Parliament went ahead and approved such a suggestion. Where would all these people, retirees who retire at the age of 50,
where would they get
their money from? We already have a problem as a country being able to sustain sustain paying back retirees at the age of 60. So I think there's a lot of corruption that is ongoing at NSSF that needs to be investigated. Culpable individuals need to be brought to book. And as I keep saying, if we can win the war against corruption from the bigger fish, then we will not have a problem arresting the smaller fish, because this is a case of persons within NHIF, big and small, you know, the big fish and the small fish, collaborating to ensure that the corruption is propagated. We're talking about irregular disposal of 70 acres of land. We're also talking about a building that was supposed to have been completed in 2016, Hazina Towers, that hasn't been completed to date. So corruption that needs to be dealt with.
Okay, it's funny that we're taking our second break of the day, talking about a different story, but winding up with the same conclusion. It's all about corruption and successful conviction when it comes to those particular cases. We're going to take a break, come back on the other side as we get closer to Mashujaa Day. Some people talking about the fact that, yes, we are having a celebration, but we're going to boycott it because we are not feeling the reason to celebrate on our end. You talk about that Mashujaa Day boycott. And also, it's the end of an era as far as the 1,000 shilling note is concerned. Was it successful? What were we expecting from it? How do we move forward from that particular point? Of course, even as we wait the CBK